Hi, I'm Jay Polaki, and this is the HR Bytes podcast, where HR practitioners share their think globally and act locally digital HR agenda. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the HR Bytes podcast. My guest today is Jon-Paul Ales, CHRO at Alive, and a special guest who's going to really put the spin on AI in HR today. Welcome to the show, John.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Absolutely. John, I tend to always ask everyone this question first. AI in HR, are you using ChatGPT?
Of course.
Okay. All right. So that's a great beginning to our conversation. What's your advice as we are grappling with all of this newfangled tech in HR today, especially with all of this Gen AI at our disposal for the HR function? How should we be approaching automation in your viewpoint? How do we help leaders within our organization as the HR business people prepare for this advent of AI in the entire organization?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think my experience has been that people are intimidated by AI, especially at the senior levels of the organization. My counsel to my peers has been to really lean into the use of the technology, but not allow the technology to become a dependency, but use it as an enhancement of what they're already doing. And I think the best example of that is around our internal communications. I think it's important when you're leveraging AI technologies that you understand that it's not a human being. And any references to it being smarter than humans are ridiculous because as HR people, we are in the people business. And so you can't lose your personality in the use of AI. That's the biggest learning for people is to understand how to maintain your voice through the usage of these technologies.
You and I talked about the practical use cases of AI in HR. You're using AI in your current organization in a certain way. Would you be able to share how you are using AI in HR today?
Yeah, sure. I think first and foremost, it helps to provide some context. We are an AI company, so our cardiovascular solutions are based in AI technology. So we're organizationally very adept at the use of AI and understanding its application. Today, the areas that we're most excited about from an HR perspective, even just around simple communications, is leveraging AI to really start to map out our career paths, our learning and development plans for our employees, and understand where people are in their career journey, and leveraging the technology to identify that point in time and help them progress to the next level.
Absolutely. So, in those instances, what is your practical advice when it comes to those journeys? Have you come up with a roadmap or mapped out the employee journey within the organization to see where your AI initiatives are going to be most impactful? Or how have you designed this?
Yes, so we're still a very small company in some respects. We have the luxury of this not being a tremendously heavy lift. I grew up in a world where competencies mattered and dissecting jobs based on competencies and skill, based on motivation, were really critical. What we have found is that leveraging AI and some of these great AI tools available in the marketplace has allowed us to utilize that competency modeling we've done up front to clearly define where those gaps might be and the journey we can help our employees get on in terms of their professional development. But the pre work was important, really understanding and dissecting those jobs and breaking them down into those core competencies and key action areas was really important.
Absolutely. That human touch, keeping that human in the loop in the midst of this technological revolution. I was speaking to someone earlier, and I actually posed this question on LinkedIn recently, asking everyone if AI will join your org chart this year. This human AI collaboration is happening so fast. Of course, it's going to be a part of the org chart. Our HR Gecko bot is part of our org chart here at HR Geckos. I found someone who's actually made their AI tool a part of their org chart. What is your advice in keeping that human in the loop in the midst of this technological revolution?
Yeah, I think it's really important that you maintain your sense of self in all of this. I can give you a good example. We hold a monthly leadership series at AliveCore. As part of that series, we bring an executive or a senior management team member on stage and telecast that conversation globally for all of our employees to watch. And it's a really great event because it brings everybody together, and it's sort of a fireside chat between me and whomever the guest of the month might be. What's interesting about that is we record those conversations, and we've started using AI to dissect that conversation and extract some of the salient points that were made. In viewing the conversation, it's very honest, very sincere, it's not scripted at all. We have found in the test models that by extracting through AI those salient points and sending them out, it makes that message or that particular interview much more long lasting, meaningful, and actionable for people.
That's great to know and hear because we are using a lot of the transcripts that AI is generating, which still need the human touch because the AI still thinks I'm male because my name's Jay
Yeah,
and transcribes everything as he in all the transcripts. We are getting there slowly but surely in using AI more in transcribing things. Media CEO, and you're on the West Coast, you might hear a lot more from Jensen Huang, and he's on TV or
yeah, sure.
any of our metaverse, where he predicted that AI will be smarter than humans in 5 years before 2030. What do you foresee for HR? I'm asking you to look into your crystal ball here in 2025 and beyond. What do you think we should be looking forward to in the HR function with the advent of AI?
So I think that quote was really telling in many ways. The first is I think it will give HR the ability to answer any question that comes at them in the spur of the moment. What do I need to do to hire someone in this country? What are the employment laws that impact us moving this office from here to there, rather than having to go back and research online, which is what we do today. So I think in that respect, yes, having that HR library of knowledge available through AI is fantastic. The part that's missing in that quote, though, is the interpretation of that information. I think that's where we come in. The more that we as HR professionals can educate ourselves, not just on the use of AI, but on the content it generates and the sentiment behind that content and messaging, I think is where the interpretation for us comes from, because the interpretation for us becomes more important. The I can tell you, there's been a number of times where I've put something into ChatGPT as an example, and around simple communications to my organization. What comes out is very stoic. It doesn't have a lot of feeling or emotion behind it. It certainly doesn't carry the sentiment that I want it to. So I spend time crafting in the voice of our organization. What's interesting is my messaging has become much more consistent in terms of that voice. The sentiment behind it has become much more reliable and dependable, meaning that consistency has really started to take hold. So it's a useful tool, but I think that human interaction and the diagnosis of what's being shared is really important.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because someone said this the other day and it got me thinking that AI is going to make us more human. It's certainly helping us be more human because somewhere along the way we seem to have lost it.
I,
And so
I totally agree with that. I think I've seen it in the behaviors of my team. We oftentimes spend so much time trying to get the message right from a intent perspective that we sometimes lose that human element or the sentiment behind it. Those for me are two very different things. I think you're right. Used in the right way, leveraging these technologies can help you lean in more as a human being into some of that messaging than we might have been able to do in the past.
absolutely. That's a great segue to what I want to learn from you next. And I hope the audience is tuned in as well to this conversation because I'm just learning so much. What are you most worried about this year for our HR function because of all this? And if you had a magic wand, what would be your ideal solution to eliminate this problem?
What I'm worried most about is in line with what we've been talking about. Recruiting, as an example, is already taking a hit. There are less and less recruiting roles available because a lot of that is being a lot of what recruiters do is being replaced by AI. That concerns me because I do think an element of recruiting that requires bringing a candidate along with the organization through the decision. I believe that you really need to earn the right to make people an offer. And the only way you do that is to really understand what their motivations are, what they need from the organization versus what we need from them. My concern about AI as it relates to recruiting is that so much of it is about what they can do for us. The AI is trained to find all the qualification reasons why or disqualification reasons why not, versus really understanding how can this person contribute from a broader perspective and what we as an organization owe this individual if they were to become an employee in terms of their development and their growth and their opportunity. AI to me is still a little too disconnected from the human element of that.
What would be your ideal solution to eliminate this challenge?
I think it's interesting because in that particular example, leveraging AI to help you with that qualification part of it, but understanding that it's qualification, it's not disqualification, and empowering recruiters to really lean in and develop relationships with those candidates to understand truly the impact that these folks can make and contribution they can bring to the organization in ways that the are either filling a gap or that the organization maybe can't recognize through these more AI driven selection models.
Absolutely. So, coming to the advice that you would like to give our HR colleagues when they are learning and adopting all of this new technology, what do you wish for your HR team specifically? And what is your best advice for our HR colleagues in today's, I guess, VUCA world, as we call it? It's really evolving and changing so rapidly.
I think it's a couple of things. First and foremost would be don't be afraid. Don't shy away from leveraging these technologies. Be curious and take the time to understand their value and where they fit. But also understand that they are a tool. They are not a human replacement. Comments like Mr. Wong's concern me because we're not looking to replace humans. We're looking to enhance their ability. If you think about AI technology or any of these new emerging technologies for that matter, they're meant to enhance capability. And part of that capability is what you as a human being bring into your role. Don't be afraid to use the tool, but at the same time, understand that it's not a replacement for you. That I think can get in the way of people really wanting to understand.
What's your wish for your HR team?
For my HR team, it's really simple. I continue to strive for us to create the best possible place for people to do their best work. I set a goal for my team to say, not all of our employees are going to be with us forever. I want our employees that do decide to move on to new opportunities to think back on their time at LiveCore as being the most innovative organization they've ever been in, the most satisfying in terms of the work, the most gratifying in terms of the contribution to the global marketplace in terms of cardiovascular disease, and a place that really changed the trajectory of their career because they were a part of something.
Wonderful. On that note, I'd love to get the audience to connect with you. So we are going to move on to our question connection segment, which is the funner part of today's conversation. I don't know. I really like the earlier section because I've learned so much from you. So who is one person, Jon-Paul, that you've gained in your network in the HR tech space, in the HR space, that you think more people should know about and connect with?
I met a gentleman recently. His name is Emel Kott. He's the CEO of a new company that's still in their angel phase. And what I appreciated about Emel is Emel's an engineer by training. And he recognized very early on in his career that we don't have a great HR solution for managing the performance of engineers. And we don't do a good job of managing the career pathing for engineers. The work they do is very hard. It's hard to measure in some ways. The traditional tools don't do a good job. Emel started his own company and has done a phenomenal job building a product for engineers by engineers, specifically targeting their growth, development, and job satisfaction. I would put him on the map as someone that I think is going to be a real game changer for the future of learning and development and professional development from an engineering perspective.
Your favorite HR podcast or HR technology book that you would recommend?
I hate to admit it, but my favorite book is not necessarily a technology book. It's not necessarily an HR book. I've read Zero to IPO several times because I love the message of go fast, don't be afraid to make mistakes, don't be afraid to challenge yourself and challenge the people around you. I that's my Bible. I use that book in my day-to-day job because I think the message is really important. I think the messaging from Zero to IPO really helps people to not be afraid to make mistakes and to challenge the status quo.
Well, I'm going to add it to my reading list. So thank you for that. We are curating an HR playlist for working from anywhere. What song would you add to that list?
I live in a family of Swifties, so I have to say it would be Taylor Swift's Shake It Off for sure.
Okay, it's going to go on the Gecko's Grooves playlist on Spotify. Would you recommend a LinkedIn Learning or e-learning webinar series for HR technology or HR?
I don't know that I'd recommend one in particular. I will say in the advanced section of the LinkedIn Learning platform, there's some really great AI tutorials. None of them are really more than about an hour long. There's some great folks presenting as part of that. And again, it's all around this messaging of really, doing the work to understand the technology, its application, and how to best utilize it as a tool. I think LinkedIn has done a phenomenal job curating some of those courses.
Thank you. We'll put that in the show notes as well. Do you like working remotely, physically in an office location, or more in a hybrid setting, the best of both worlds?
Great question. I really prefer to be in the office. Half of my team is not in the office. I prefer to be in the office because in my role where I'm trying to help the organization build culture and bonding, I don't think you can do that as effectively remotely. I have folks on my team that work remotely 100% of the time and they do a phenomenal job. I have a couple folks on my team that work a hybrid model and they do as effectively a job. I do think it comes down to personal preference. I'm a tactile person. I like to look people in the face. I like to sit down and have lunch with people in the common area. That's hard to do virtually.
Well, you enjoy giving back to the community in many ways where you live, but how do you specifically enjoy giving back to the HR community?
I am a very active member in a couple of professional organizations related to HR. People Tech Partners here on the West Coast is a good example of that. I also mentor some small startup companies. I'm an advisor to a couple of specific HR tech companies and the community in general. I do quite a bit of volunteer work. So I'm pretty busy outside of just my day-to-day role.
Well, Jon-Paul, I have learned so much from you today, and I hope to continue to learn from you in the metaverse as we interact. I'm sure the audience has really learned so many new things and gained so many valuable insights from our conversation today. What is the best way for them to connect with you?
Best way to connect with me is on LinkedIn. It's the one social platform I use professionally. I post a lot, and I welcome any people that want to connect with me there.
Thank you for joining me on the HR Bytes podcast and for sharing such valuable tools, tricks, and tips for the HR trade that we are in today.
Thank you, Jay. It's been a pleasure.
Listen on your favorite podcast channels and watch us on YouTube. Follow us on social. We are on LinkedIn, X, Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. Join our budding community on LinkedIn and Facebook. Ask, answer, advise.